Hello, welcome back in my kitchen. My name is Umaru Kadagan, and I'd like to show you how we can take the knowledge we have of nutrition and functional medicine and turn it into actual tasty cooking. Today we're going to have a little excursion in the realm of salmon adventures. So here I have some organic salmon fillets, and I'm going to cook them in 3 different ways, and it will take me less than 15 minutes. So let's get the timer going. Mark. The first thing I want to do is I'll do some poached salmon. So here I have a pot of boiling water, and I'm going to add a piece of salmon. I'll just cook 1 piece now. It could of course be more if you were to cook for more people. Oops. Drop it in. Wait until the water comes back on the boil, which it will in a second. And make sure the salmon is completely submerged. Now I'm simply going to put a lid on it, take it off the heat and leave it for 15 minutes in the hot water. So the water is warm enough to cook the salmon through, but at the same time you won't overcook the salmon. The thing with fish is that salmon and any other fish is quite fragile material, so if you cook it really hard and aggressively, then what you'll end up with is something really boring. The meat will fall apart, it will become all dry. This way is an idiot-proof method of poaching or boiling your salmon or any other fish. Let me just, let me just get a clock so I have that going. So I don't have 15 minutes from now, or a bit less. I then said, okay, we'll do it in 3 ways. So the other thing we're going to do is broiled salmon and tomato. Very simple, extremely tasty. So I have my piece of salmon and something that will go in the oven that can take the heat. Here I have some homemade tomato sauce. So I'm going to pour that on top. You could use bought tomato sauce if you have some of that, but make sure of course it's one that has no added corn syrup, maltodextrin, refined starch, so it's just real pure tomato sauce, nothing else. And then we need to top that with some spices. So here's just a bit of curry, which goes very well with it. Now all I need to do is broil it in the oven. So I have my oven set at 200 degrees Celsius, centigrade. The salmon goes in here, and that actually only needs about 10 minutes. So we'll reset the watch and then know once the 10 minutes are up, we have another 4 minutes for the poached salmon to be finished. That leaves me with the last thing, which is I'm going to do a bit of fried salmon in a healthier way, or maybe we should say a less unhealthy way, because obviously when you fry things you can't really avoid getting some of these glycosylation and compound formed, these things that are formed when there's a bit of scorching, but we can do some things to reduce some of the damage. Now I'm just going to turn my salmon in quinoa flour. Usually you might use breadcrumbs or wheat flour, but if you're allergic to or intolerant to gluten, then most of the flours normally used to bread fish are obviously a no-go. So I'll turn with quinoa flour. Of all the gluten-free flours, quinoa flour is the one that gives you the best taste and texture. So when you coat it in quinoa flour, you actually get a very crispy surface. Now the other thing I'm going to do, because I want to reduce the formation and damage done by some of these compounds you have formed when you fry things, is I'll add turmeric. So I'm actually going to turn it in turmeric as well. Turmeric contains curcumin, which is the yellow-orange color compound in the turmeric, and curcumin both increases the formation of some of these scorching compounds, and it also ramps up the enzymes in your digestive system that break down these things. So if you get curcumin whenever you eat something fried, that will lessen the damage. Now it's not going to be along the lines, oh, just if I just have curcumin, that won't be a problem at all, but you can decrease the damage. So if once in a while you want a piece of fried fish, I suggest you bread it with some quinoa flour and then sprinkle it with plenty of turmeric afterwards, so you get, you know, a very liberal dosing. And then we'll fry our salmon in a bit of coconut oil. So in a moment I just need to get my frying pan hot, and here I am using a non-stick frying pan, but not one covered with some of these fluoride-based and non-stick compounds. So it's not Teflon or anything like that. So here it's actually pure titanium. You could also use non-stick pans of the type called Thermalon, or with the type of coating called Thermalon. That would work as well. So non-stick does make it easier. It also means you don't have to use as much fat, and actually you don't have to fry things at as high a temperature. But make sure that you use a safe, non-toxic, non-stick surface. So we'll just give it another minute or so we get some heat. Right, now here I'm using salmon, but you could use any other type of fish. So you could do the same with cod, pollock, turbot, whatever other firm fish you can cut into fillets. So you don't have to be stuck just with salmon. Now I just took salmon because that's something a lot of people eat. Maybe something you might be a bit tired of as well, because you've had salmon, and more salmon. So like, okay, what now? And I have something else. So I just thought I'd show you some ways of doing it. Now, then we'll add a bit of coconut oil. And put our salmon on top. And then wait until you can hear it's actually going from the moment you can hear that the frying process is going. So I actually should have let the pan become a bit warmer first. But from the moment you can hear the frying process going, you want to wait a minute or a minute and a half before you turn it. And then once you've turned it, give it another minute to a minute and a half. Then turn off the heat completely and simply leave it on the frying pan on the stove and let the residual heat in the frying pan finish the cooking again. That will decrease the likelihood of really serious scorching or burning, and it will also make the salmon or whatever other fish you could cook juicier. So now we're about going here. So we'll do about a minute and a half from now when the frying process is going, because you want to make sure you close the surface. So you want to make sure that you do get a bit of a browning on the surface just to close it and to get that crispiness that we do crave, even if it might not be the healthiest all of the time. Now, whilst we're waiting for this, speaking of other things you could do to reduce the damage caused by some of the molecules created when you fry things or grill things. Turmeric is one thing, but also cruciferous vegetables are quite good. So if you have lots of cabbage, broccoli, cauliflower, or radishes are also cruciferous vegetables. In fact, mustard is in the same family, plant family. So if you have those along with whatever you're eating that's fried, again, the isothiocyanates in the cruciferous vegetables will actually turn on protective mechanisms in your body that protect you against the compounds created by frying. So that can help. And also some of the Mediterranean spices, rosemary, sage, thyme, oregano, if you eat those, they'll upregulate detoxification enzymes in the surface of your stomach, your esophagus, your small intestine, and also in your liver. That increases your body's capacity for handling some of these things that are created when you fry. So we'll just wait another half minute or so to make sure that the bottom is quite done as well, which it is now, so you get a wee bit of browning, not a lot, so I'll simply turn off the heat, put a lid on the frying pan, and then leave it for 4 or 5 minutes, which actually fits with what we have in the oven, and let the residual heat that circulates cook it. So this, in some ways, is also a slight reduction in greenhouse gas emissions, because we're using a bit less energy to cook this way, and we won't get as much scorching. So what we really should have with this is obviously some cruciferous vegetables. And the final vegetable or group of vegetables that also seem to have a protective effect against some of the mutants that are created when you fry or heat things is the tomato. So tomato sauce would also be a really good thing to have along with this. Of course, our broiled salmon in the oven has tomato sauce. Anyway, we have 2 minutes to go, so what can I tell you? For 2 minutes, I'm sure I can come up with something. Of course, yeah, the thing is also you might be thinking, but all these things are just for dinner. The thing is, everything we're doing right now, the gently fried salmon, the poached salmon, the broiled salmon, I'm just going to turn this. They taste really good hot, but they're also very good cold. So here I'm just making small portions just to demonstrate. But when I do this in my everyday life, I usually cook large portions, because this fried salmon or the broiled salmon, the poached salmon, they taste just as good cold as warm. So if you cook a double portion, you can have some for dinner, and then you have the rest either for a quick dinner the next day or for lunch. So if you think ahead, you don't have to start from scratch every single time. You can actually plan ahead and say, okay, I'll just do a whole pan full of fried salmon, so I have enough for myself and the family for dinner, and then we have enough for lunch tomorrow, or we can make a quick dinner tomorrow evening just with some salad, or some sort of solid, substantial salad or other vegetables. And if you need carbohydrates, maybe just a piece of whole grain bread, or a little bit of boiled brown rice, or a few legumes, and there you go. Anyway, let's see. I think it sounds like our salmon is close to done. The boiled one, or not the fried one. Let's have a look. Yeah, see here. I mean, just look at it. How wonderful it looks. And we'll just grab a clean fork and have a look how it looks inside. Look at that. Perfectly succulent and juicy. You could leave it for a few more minutes. That's a matter of taste. I like my salmon just like, when I have meat, have it rare. But actually, I'm juicy in the middle. This tastes really good. But you could also just leave it in the pan for another 4 minutes or so if you want it cooked a bit more. That's up to you. But do remember that fish is a very fragile food. So if you overcook it, then it will go dry, and you have no other resort except some sort of really heavy cream-based sauce to eat it. I mean, if I took this apron and cut it into little bits, I could actually eat them if someone gave me enough cream-based sauce to swallow it down and wolf it down, but that obviously wouldn't be something joyous or something to enjoy. So let's just look here. Broiled salmon. Yeah. Now let's check. It might need another 2 minutes. It's a bit, we'll see whether it's done, cooked through. This can do with another 2 minutes or so. That's okay. We'll wait for that whilst the slow poaching is going on. So I usually, with this recipe, I will check after 10 minutes, and if the salmon needs a bit more, then I can check again, because I'd rather check it 3 minutes early as opposed to 3 minutes late, since fish is such a fragile food. Because if you cook your fish just 2-3 minutes too long, or maybe even just a minute, you go from this lovely, nice, succulent, juicy, tasty food, and then you end up having something really dry and boring instead. So I can't tell myself this tastes really good. Oh yeah, and by the way, of course, you could also sorts of other spices here. The turmeric went in there for health reasons, and it also looked really good with the yellow color. But I mean, you could have added a bit of chili powder, pepper, salt. I tend to fry my fish like that, without salt, and then add salt or soy sauce afterwards if I need a bit more saltiness. You know, that you could do that. You could even put in some dried garlic powder if you want that sort of flavor, or some very finely ground dried rosemary or thyme or oregano as well. That's all up to you. So you can add all sorts of spices to the covering for the fish or the coating. And let's see how we're doing over here. I think we're close to done with this one. So do come and have a look. So we'll just look at the salmon in here. So you can see, cooked to perfection. Solid, but also still a bit wobbly. And if we take a fork, we can see how when we push it, it breaks into flakes like that. And that means it's just done just perfectly. So this would taste really good as it is warm, with a dressing, maybe with some olive oil, some garlic, lemon, lemon zest, lemon juice, salt and pepper, or the tomato sauce. It's nice and juicy, just like this. And see again, here you can really see that it's done but not overcooked, because when I separate it, you can see these folds in the muscle. If it was overcooked, then it would just come apart as strands, almost looking like a piece of ripped cotton wool. But then what this is also really good cold. So the day after, to use this for lunch, if you're bringing your lunch to work or school, take a piece of whole grain bread, put some pesto on top of that whole grain bread, take a piece of salmon like that, and just press it gently so it actually separates out into pieces like this, and then eat some vegetable sticks on the side. You have a really scrumptious, delicious, and superbly healthy lunch. And that takes us back to our broiled salmon. That should now be finished. I think we need another plate so we can have a look at it. Yum, yum, yum. Look at this. Just look at it. As you can see, it's now soaked up some of the tomatoes, so you can see here again, cooked perfectly. When we push it, separates into flakes like that, which is just the way you want it. You don't want it dry. But here now, it's actually soaked up the tomato flavor, and the tomato sauce is nice and velvety. So usually when people have fish, they're used to having it along with something really rich and substantial. Here you get the same texture, but without loads of fat or way too many calories or loads of low quality fat, which it would be if you use some of the low quality dairy products out there for a cream based or milk based sauce. So also, the tomato flavor goes all the way through. Here in Denmark, a delicacy is actually canned mackerel with tomato sauce, or not a delicacy, but something a lot of people eat. But usually there's a lot of sugar in that tomato sauce, so it's essentially mackerel canned with tomato ketchup. But here you get the natural sweetness in the tomatoes without any added sugar, so you can get the same flavor, same taste, just without anything added that's no good for your health. Bon appetit!